All right, thank you so much. Welcome to another episode of the award-winning Sales Game Changers podcast. My name is Fred Diamond from the Institute for Effective Professional Selling. This is a special episode. Dr. Andrew Loring from Texas A&M. It's an office hours sales professors unplugged. And Dr. Loring, this is a great show where I interview professors who run programs, usually associated with the University Sales Center Alliance. And are you currently the president? Did your term just end?
No, I'm currently the president for another year, so
Very
through the
good.
fall of 2027.
Very, very good. All right, I'm going to be talking today with Dr. Andrew Loring at Texas A&M, the University Sales Center Alliance. If you're listening to the show on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. And you could find all of our previous episodes, salesgamechangerspodcast.com. And again, Andrew, Dr. Loring, we've done about 20 special episodes where I'll interview a professor, an executive director of a university program. Either it's a sales major, a minor, or a certificate in professional selling, educating young adults to go work at the companies that are part of the Institute for Effective Professional Selling, great companies that are doing B2B, potentially B2G, business to government sales. And I got to say, the work that you and your peers do to prepare these young adults for careers in professional selling is world class. So it's great to have you here. I'm very excited. I'm excited to learn more about some of your vision for the University Sales Center Alliance, specifically what you're doing at Texas A&M. So why don't you get us started? Tell us a little bit about what's going on at Texas A&M. Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about your program. And I got a bunch of questions I'm dying to ask you here.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for having me, Fred. I've seen several of the episodes before, and I'm really thankful to get a chance to be on this podcast. Again, like you said, my name is Andrew Loring. I'm the Associate Director of the Reynolds and Reynolds Sales Leadership Institute at Texas A&M University, and we've been a recognized program for the last 10 years now. Actually, last October in 2025, we celebrated our 10-year anniversary. So it's been a really exciting milestone in everything that we've achieved over the last decade in sales education.
It's quite remarkable. And actually, there's a number of schools in Texas. I've interviewed Dr. Howard Dover. I interviewed Samira Amanpour from University of Texas in Dallas. Of course, Dr. Linda Alkire at Texas State. Why is Texas such a great home for some of these programs?
Yeah, and I'll add, Fred, that we've actually got more than one sales program at Texas A&M University now. So Willie Bolander heads up a program in the College of Engineering as well. So there's sales all over the place in Texas. As you may see in the news, Texas is booming economically, and College Station is right in the middle of what some people refer to as the Texas Triangle. And so within 3 hours of College Station are about 15 million people. So DFW, Houston, and Austin are just booming. Companies are moving in and they need to hire great sales candidates.
Yeah, and actually, I neglected to mention Baylor University.
Yep.
Of course, we've had Dr. Andrea Dixon and Lane Wakefield, and they have multiple programs there as well. So great stuff is happening down in Texas. As some people know, my daughter recently moved to Austin, so I'm excited to learn more. So, again, we're doing today's interview in July of 2026, middle of your term as president of the USCA. You've had a front row seat to the evolution of university sales education. What changes have you seen in the past? You mentioned 10 years that your program's been around that have had the greatest impact.
Yeah, no, of course. We've certainly seen a lot of changes. And I'd say that more and more companies have come out of the woodwork, so to speak, sharing the great opportunities that they have for our students, for young graduates. And so the change specifically that I've seen are more and more companies wanting to hire sales students off of college campuses. Yeah, that's been a dramatic shift. I mean, 10 years ago, you'd always have the big players that were there, but more and more lately, we're seeing companies in really obscure industries that are really interesting, that are great places for our students to go work.
When these companies get the message
Mhm.
right? I've done a couple interviews with your peers and sponsors of their programs. And when they get the message, they're recruiting and hiring young adults that are 3 to 5 years advanced from new employees who might not have gone through your
Yeah.
program. I mean, they have to learn about your technology and your offerings and your sales process, but they understand uh, sales process, they understand solution selling, they understand, the various models. One of the great things about these young adults is they're not afraid.
Yeah.
They're fearless in getting on calls, on
Yeah.
doing interactions with prospects. So, as the president of the USCA, what trends are you hearing from the sales programs across the country that really should resonate with these business leaders that should be sponsoring and attracted to these programs?
Yeah. Well, for any recruiter or someone who works in HR, sales executive, attrition is a big problem. Anytime you hire a new salesperson, you run a risk of them getting there and realizing, hey, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, and then they quit. And that's where the USCA and sales programs come in and play a huge role because our graduates are walking into roles at companies that they're already familiar with. Perhaps they've interned with that company, or at least they've met recruiters over, in some cases, several years. And so they know exactly what they're getting themselves into. And as a result, they're quitting far less. And companies, they couldn't ask for something better than a student who knows what they're doing and they're hungry, like you said, to get after it and achieve their goals and work hard.
That's a great point. I mean, losing an employee, it could be six figures,
Yeah,
especially for some of the roles. And that's one of the things that we've been pitching as well is it's a strain on a company. Costs a lot of
absolutely.
money to recruit. They might be taking a shot, but when the young adult has the preparation, it definitely they want to be there. They
Mhm.
know, they've been exposed because a lot of these young adults who go through your programs, it's not like senior year last semester. A lot of them that we've spoken to, they get it. They might not know when they go to college,
Yeah,
but maybe after the freshman year or early on in their career, they begin to see what your programs offer. Even more importantly, the
yeah,
career opportunities that come after that. So, they're hitting the ground running.
yeah.
Texas A&M runs one of the nation's premier programs. Tell us a little bit about why it's such a premier program and what do you think distinguishes some of the great sales programs at the USCA from others?
Yeah. Well, I'll say that one of the big benefits of the USCA is our accreditation. And so we meet the same accreditation standards as all other USCA schools. So it's hard in some regards to say that we're better. I don't believe that we're any better than other programs. I will say that we tend to focus more on students' innate personality characteristics and
Hmm.
help them increase their emotional intelligence and relate that to different companies and jobs that are out there. As we know, I mean, we all have different personalities. Some people are better suited for hunter roles, while other students are better suited for farmer account management roles. And so we try to do a real deep dive into emotional intelligence and personality to help our students understand where they best fit in the wide world of sales opportunities. And again, being in the middle of the Texas Triangle, our students will go to oil and gas opportunities in Houston. They'll go do everything in DFW. They'll go do tech in Austin. And so it's really important that they understand the differences between B2C, B2B, B2G. I mean, hunter, farmer, all the different types of sales roles that are out there and how they'll progress over their careers in those different roles. So that's where we tend to focus is more on that personality.
I want to go a little bit deeper into that. 10 years ago, when the programs were getting kicked off, did you think that emotional intelligence was going to be such a critical thing? I mean, it comes up so frequently on the Sales Game Changers
Yeah,
podcast. We've even had the author of the great book, Selling with Emotional Intelligence, Holly Stanley, on the book on the podcast many times and on our stage. Talk a little bit more about
sure.
how the work that you do, because you're
Yeah,
absolutely right. If
yeah,
you keep pushing on someone in sales to do the wrong thing, they're
yeah,
probably going to fail. I love
yeah.
that you're doing this work when they're in college because they've already acknowledged that they want to go into sales. Now you're getting even more specific in setting them up for a career of success.
I'll give you an example, Fred. So all of us, we do role playing with our students. And in those role plays, we follow a sales process, just like all salespeople do, or most salespeople should. And in that sales process, I tell my students that we as human beings, we can't be perfect at everything. There's areas of the sales process where we're naturally going to excel at, and there's areas that are going to be more challenging for us. A very simple example is the natural extrovert. They're going to be really strong in that meeting opening category, the very beginning of a role play in that rubric line item where they're knocking on the door with excitement and hunger to meet someone. Small talk comes naturally to them. Whereas an introverted student might struggle at that beginning, but then they pick it up when it comes to the discovery. They're incredibly good at asking questions and listening attentively and coming up with content that backs up the benefits of those needs that they discovered. And so we take the emotional intelligence down to that level where we break down each step in the rubric and help our students align their innate personality characteristics to each line on the rubric. So they go into our role plays with an understanding that there's some areas of that rubric that they're going to do naturally better than others. And they know where they need to double down and work a little bit harder in preparation because it doesn't come so naturally to them.
So, as a follow-up, talk a little bit about the types of companies that are recruiting from Texas A&M, and where do a lot of your students? I love the way you just made that distinction,
Yeah,
between the extrovert, the introvert, and so many of those extroverts are great in the early stage. They're fearless on the phone. Maybe they're athletes, so they're used to rejection, so to speak, and it doesn't really bother them. But yeah, the introverts, they maybe are better at the more complex deals where they
sure.
have to talk to multiple people and think out the strategy. It's not just bursting through. Just kind of curious, where do the grads at Texas A&M, where do a
Yeah.
lot of them go work?
Yeah. So again, we have incredibly diverse, where our students go is pretty diverse. We're agnostic to industry. So we are named after a company, Reynolds and Reynolds. And Reynolds and Reynolds, they're an automotive dealership solution provider, and they're based all around the country. It's exclusively B2B and highly complex. So they go in and they help car dealerships understand what needs and solutions that they can provide with their award-winning technology. And so that's much longer sales cycle. But our students will also do tech sales. So a lot of them will go to Austin and to BDR type roles. Many will go down to Houston and oil and gas. So some of our students go to Baker Hughes and other oil and gas companies. We do a lot in logistics, and I mean, most everyone does insurance. A lot of our students go to Gartner and PepsiCo and
Mm.
AT&T. So all the major players, but we also have been getting in recently with a lot of healthcare. And so we have two fabulous partners in healthcare with AbbVie and Amgen, and they've been tremendous supporters of our program because our students have really found a niche in their desire to go into healthcare sales type roles.
That is great. That is a wide range of
Yeah,
industries. And what's even cooler about it is, yeah, you mentioned some companies, Gardner, PepsiCo, AbbVie. Uh, these are companies that are doing some important things,
yeah,
right? So as I tell selling professionals all the time, I mean, you're providing a service. Yeah,
yeah,
there might be attraction at that young age about, the money you can make and, the brands, et cetera. But sales is the part of the business that really makes things go. And for the types of companies that you just talked about to be committed to working at the university level to bring those people into their process, it's pretty impressive. Just kind of curious, like how do you communicate to those companies about getting involved? What really is
sure.
it that attracts them?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to put it is that we help them hire great candidates that don't quit. So it reduces their attrition. Obviously, companies have one of two choices. They can either hire an experienced salesperson or they can hire a college student who's about to graduate. And our pitch is that our students are much more malleable, so they're hungry and they're willing to learn your company's ways from the ground up. And companies love it. They love it. They're willing to come on campus and meet our students earlier and earlier, as early as sophomore year in some cases, and keep that relationship going over time until graduation, so that students are ultimately walking into a role that they feel like they've been working at for the last 2 years, which is pretty incredible.
Okay, so it's 15 minutes into the interview. We haven't brought up AI. So AI, AI, of course, is changing how we prospect, research, communicate, everything in the sales process. Um, How are you using AI
Yeah.
to prepare students? Where does AI
Yeah.
come into your curriculum?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is I'm glad you brought this up because this is a hot button topic of the USCA. In fact, we brought in several AI vendors to our fall meeting last year.
Yep.
We're using AI in the same way that all other programs are using it, and it's as a supplement to help students prepare for human to human, face to face role plays. And so we use it as where our students will role play with an AI agent, an AI avatar, and they'll do that with piece by piece of the sales process ahead of their face-to-face role plays. That's how we're exclusively using AI.
You know, I'm just kind of, we talked about sponsors a second ago.
Yep.
And It's amazing. So every time I post an office hours Sales Professors Unplugged show, I pop it up on LinkedIn. Invariably, I'll get 3 to 5 people who will say, even though we've done close to 20 shows, gee, I didn't know that universities had sales programs.
Yeah.
And it's a relatively new thing, if you will.
Mhm.
So the USCA, the University Sales Center Alliance, you're bringing together universities and corporate partners. You just mentioned some blue chip, world-class companies. And you mentioned that they're looking at some of your young adults when they're sophomore and early on in their careers. Talk a little bit more about what do you expect from corporate partners,
Yeah.
and what is your recommendation for other USCA members to be of more value to get more corporate partners involved?
Yeah, yeah. So the number one thing that any company that's listening to this podcast can help all schools with all programs is hire our students. Be willing to hire off college campuses and maybe let go of the experienced hire because of the baggage that they come with. So open your mind to the university hire, and I promise you that you'll have a good experience no matter really wherever you go. For universities, for programs, my ask for all of them is to make it easy for companies to engage on campus with you. Invite them into your classrooms, invite them to your events, whether it's a career fair, a networking type of event, or maybe you have your own sales competition. Make it easy for them to come on campus because at the end of the day, they've got to drive to your campus, whether it's close or far. They're giving up time to do that, and they obviously want to see a win-win, some value in their time, and that is meeting your great students. And it is 100% worthwhile. I mean, obviously, we've been doing it for a decade and we've had tremendous success.
Just kind of curious, as an educator, right? And one of the cool things about doing these particular interviews, the office hour sales professors unplugged, is that you're committed to helping the young adults get their careers started,
Yep.
often in a great way. And we all know, everybody who's listening to this, that sales is a great way to do it. As an educator, what are some of the skills, as a sales educator
Yeah.
specifically, what are some of the skills that you desperately
Yeah.
want to ensure that they are leaving your
Yeah.
program with?
Yep. So I love that you asked that. And it's funny because every single year we host an advisory board meeting with all our corporate partners. And I asked them that same question. I'm like, what do we need to be teaching our students this year that we didn't incorporate last year that are going to help them get better prepared? And what's interesting to me is every single year, it's typically the same thing. And they say, I don't care about the technology. We can teach them how to sell. We can teach them about our products and services. What we can't teach them are the interpersonal skills, their ability to build a natural, genuine relationship, their ability to ask outstanding questions and connect those to future problems that could be solved. That's what they can't teach. That's what they look for. And so that's why we've doubled down on our ability to help coach and develop our students in their interpersonal skills. And so this is where AI is helping play that role is it's giving them more repetitions, albeit with an AI avatar, but still they're practicing the oral communication, which is incredibly important to all these companies. They want them to be able to have a good, genuine conversation with anybody as they sell. So that's where we've really doubled down, and that's ultimately what companies have wanted to see over the last decade and continue to want to see.
That's a great point. I mean, if you're going to graduate a young adult in the sales program, you don't expect that they know everything about the beverage industry, right? But you're right. But Pepsi works. If you think about Pepsi, they deal with so many different entities, obviously, that they sell to,
Yeah.
and you need to interface as a selling professional with multiple people, especially as we're talking the
Yeah.
B2B and the complex. And you need to talk to finance people. You need to talk to tech people. You need to talk to other salespeople, depending on what your role is going to be. And I love that you use an emotional intelligence. To be perfectly frank with
Yeah.
you, Dr. Loring, I think you might be one of the first uh, office hour sales professors unplugged guests who have focused on that. And we believe it's such a critical thing. It comes up, time and time again. Again, so you're the president of the USCA, University Sales Center Alliance. Um, are more universities coming to you? Because where do you see the growth of programs? And if someone were to come to you, what might be your advice?
Yeah, no. So most often, I'd say most often we have new programs. So faculty that are just starting at a new university and have been charged with starting a sales program. They typically find the USCA because that's one of the primary functions of why we exist is to support sales programs in their growth and development over time. And I want to call out James McElroy at the University of New Hampshire. He's current board member of the USCA, and he created something called the Sales Program Maturity Model that is actually a map where you can look at your program on a bunch of different variables and see where you land today, and then you can chart where you want to be in the future. So we use that maturity model to help programs, whether you're new or you've been around 20, 25, 30 years, measure your success today and then help you improve in certain areas for tomorrow. So that's the major success area that we try to bring to all programs who are involved with USCA.
I'm just kind of curious, what's your favorite part of your job? What is your favorite part, not of the USCA, but of running the program at Texas A&M?
Yeah, so there's several things. The first thing that comes to my mind, I mean, I love being in the classroom. I love teaching and facilitating. I do a lot, obviously, with emotional intelligence. I'm a Clifton Strengths Gallup certified strengths coach. I'm a DISC certified practitioner. So I do a lot of that. And one of the favorite things I have are students who sit in the class in an entry-level professional selling class having a negative and a skewed view of sales day one. They're like, oh, I don't want, I'm only here because it's a required course. I don't really want to be here. And then soon, by the end of the semester, they learn about all the things that we talk about and they leave saying, this is amazing, that you completely changed my perspective on sales and sales careers. And that's probably the most rewarding, the most fun thing.
All right, so we got time for one or two more questions.
Sure.
Here's an opportunity for you. If a sales executive or a sales leader, within 2 hours of College Station is listening, give
Yeah.
their pitch. Tell them why they should get involved with your program, either at the individual level, if there's a spot, or at the corporate level.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'd say no matter where the school is, I would look at the proximity they are to sales programs. So it's not just about Texas A&M. I'm going to call out all the USCA schools. They're all listed on our website. And so if you recruit in a general geographic area that's close to any USCA program, the faculty's contact information is on our website. So please look them up. But the pitch to them is just hire the students because they will walk in knowing more than anybody who has graduated from a non-sales program. So there's a huge advantage, and this has been proven in the research over time that sales program graduates, they ramp up faster and they turn over less. They quit less. The first thing you should think about is always hire from a sales program directly.
All right. So last question here. Again, you're the president of the USCA. You're doing a great job, by the way. Part of the goal is to get the message across to
Yeah.
corporate America, and you've done a great job over the course of today's show of the value of it. Where do you want to see us in 5 years from now? What is there,
Yeah.
about 80, 85 companies that are, or universities that are
Yeah.
part of the USCA?
Yeah, that's correct.
Where do you want to be in 5 years from a university
Yeah.
membership perspective and maybe from a corporate sponsorship perspective?
Yeah, yeah. So obviously we had our first international meeting in
Mm.
Europe, and in Europe there's a big need. I mean, our world is getting smaller and smaller, and doing business globally is happening more and more like it has for the past 15, 20 years. So from an expansion standpoint, obviously we're trying to plant a bigger flag in Europe, get more European schools involved, and we're doing the same thing in the United States. But the area where we want to make real progress is spread the USCA brand in the corporate world far more than we have. And the reality is we will go to SHRM events, Society of Human Resource Management events, and just talk to companies. And it's mind-blowing how few companies that hire for sales don't know that sales programs exist. Now, I get that sales programs have really only been around for the last 20 years or so. They've really taken off in the last 15. So I understand that we've got a lot of work to do. But from a USCA mission, one of our marketing strategies over the next year is going to be shouting from the rooftops that we're here, we exist, and we've got great students for you.
Yeah, it's great. And, again, getting to know the universities, speaking to the students, uh, the work that you and your peers are doing is a great service to companies. And I love the way you talked about retention, making sure that the young adults going through your programs get into the right sales career. And they may learn different things, obviously, once they get out there. And, I tell young adults all the time in sales, when they ask me for advice, matter of fact, this morning, again, we're doing today's interview in July 9th of 2026. We did a program at the Institute for Effective Professional Selling this morning. We had about 200 salespeople. And one of the young adults asked me for advice. I said, get to know your company. Get to know everything about your company. I know you're in sales. You're probably going to learn about the product. You're probably going to learn about the industry, but understand what finance does. Understand what operations does.
Oh, yeah.
Because one thing that your customer wants from you, sales guy or lady, as the face of the company is, how do I submit invoices? How do I get tech support? How do I track my orders? That's a role that you do. So get to know the whole company. Andrew Loring, Dr. Andrew Loring, Texas A&M, College Station, University Sales Center Alliance. Great job. Is there anything that you want to get across that we haven't spoken about as we wind down today's interview?
I just want to say thank you, Fred. Thank you for having me on this podcast. It's been great. And if anyone who's listening to this wants to connect Texas A&M to our Sales Leadership Institute or the USCA and other schools, please, at any time, reach out to me. I'm happy to help.
Absolutely. Great job. Congratulations. Continued success. My name is Fred Diamond, and this is the Sales Game Changers Podcast, Office Hours, Sales Professors Unplugged.